All right. JFK Files Deeper Dive. Wolf Blitzer apparently loves women's basketball. And that weird White Lotus scene that for some reason is getting praised. This is Propaganda Report. I'm Brad Binkley. It is midnight on the East Coast, 9 on the West Coast. I don't know where it is in the other timelines, but I hope everybody's having a good evening, and I hope you've dedicated enough of your day to investigating the JFK files, of which there are many, and they are very, very hard to investigate because they're all PDF images. So, I don't know what that word was, We are going to do a little bit of a deeper dive on some of those today. So let's go ahead and dive into this here. I'll say this about these files. There is some interesting stuff in there. I have, to my surprise, found some connections that I didn't necessarily expect that I would find. I don't know what I expected, but in order to find those connections, I had to take information from the files that I've looked at. And I've had to go beyond the files and search on the CIA.gov website, do a specifically focused search that eliminates every other possible, one of those Google search modifiers that you can do. You type in site, CIA.gov, whatever term that you want to search from. I recommend everybody doing this if there's something that interests you from the documents. Whatever term you find interesting. Like what I look for is I look for ways they describe agents or people that I've never heard of before. People who seem to have a big role in a document or something that happened, but no description of who that person is. So words, things like that just seem to need more information to give context to understand what the document is. Take those, and the first thing I do is I go to CIA.gov, and you type in site, S-I-T-E, and then colon or semicolon. The one that has two periods, not the period and the comma. I don't know the grammar very well, obviously. But right after that, cite either semicolon or colon. Let's get this right. Let's not be retarded about this. Semicolon versus colon. I think I've already been retarded about it. Okay, it's a colon. SITE, colon, CIA.gov. And then whatever you want to search in parentheses. And Google will return results that only search within the CIA.gov site. I should say add to your search in parentheses also. So the blank search term that you want to see if there's another document. Parentheses. Then right next to it, in parentheses, PDF. And what usually comes up is either some review, a book review or something, or a declassified document that was made public years ago that is unrelated, yet if it shows up, it's going to have the same terminology in that document as in the JFK documents. And that's a good way to see if there are any connections in the CIA to any of the names that you see in the JFK files. And I found a connection. I found a name that was just kind of glaring in one of these documents. No explanation. Asked for who this person was. And I said, who is this person? Let's see if there's any other CIA documents that have been declassified that include this person's name. And there was one. And I'm going to show you that one a little bit later on in the show. Not too later on. We're going into it right now. But that's just kind of the way that I think about these things. I write a list of things. Because, the stuff that everybody says it. I've seen the same commentary on opposing sides about all of the same type of documents, and I am going to talk about some of those documents that have been going around, but I have gone a bit further with them because of the interesting aspects of them that people aren't focused on because people focus on the divisive aspects of them. But the interesting aspects of them are the names, the terminology, whatever sticks out to you as, what is that? Because if they use those words, and if you see a name that plays an important role in some of these documents, chances are those names, those terms, along with explanations as to what they are. Because the CIA has a lot of different ways that they describe different officers, just like the FBI does. Very interesting stuff. There's a whole manual for the FBI for online covert employees, and that's just one way to describe some of their undercover agents, just in different avenues. CIA is the same thing. And every time I start doing these deep dives, I used to do this all the time. I used to love just reading CIA documents. Just go to the CIA page and do what I told you a minute ago, and just whatever can pop into your head, conspiratorial-wise or whatever, just search it and see what comes up. I found so many documents today doing that on CIA.gov that are so interesting. The psychology of a CIA agent, the psychology of manipulation, the psychosis. They have so many different manuals on how to train agents to manipulate people. I used to deep dive into these on the show all the time. It's like you're pulling me back in with this stuff. It's endless, but it's also very interesting. To me, that's the interesting aspect of this, because we're not really learning anything consequential with the JFK documents. And I never expected to, and I don't think any of you expected to. They weren't going to, on page 1, just have, well, you got us. There was 2 shooters. It was the CIA, blah, blah, blah. He was a patsy. That wasn't going to happen. Nobody expected that to happen. What these documents were, there are a number of things. They were a scavenger hunt. They are a scavenger hunt. And I fell into that. Like, I'm scavenger hunting now, because once you go in, it's like really interesting stuff. And along with a scavenger hunt that has the nation involved, it's a distraction. Trump is very good at doing this seesaw back and forth of do something good domestically. You love it. You love cutting whatever, all these USAID. I hate it. And then does something internationally that people don't like. So when you get the backlash to that, you gotta throw the JFK files and stuff like that. People aren't talking about the Epstein files. Not a lot of people, anyway. There are no Epstein files. The Epstein files, it's a little different than the JFK files, okay? JFK, very, very old files. People involved are dead or decrepit. If there's any criminals involved in the JFK assassination still alive, they're like that 90-year-old Nazi that got celebrated at the Canadian Parliament. You know, they had no idea. He was sitting center stage. The point is, the JFK stuff, or the Epstein stuff, you don't want those files to come out. You don't want images and videos of whatever they might have to come out. You want a prosecution to happen, is what you want. The JFK files are different. And what the JFK files have shown is that this administration is going to continue like this. Something you don't like internationally. Pushback. Bam. Let's hold back some of the stuff people want. People are begging for certain things. Let's hold it back. Maybe they are going to release some Epstein stuff. But I'll tell you what, they're not going to splurge everything at once. Why would they do that? They're going to hold it back for when people are mad at them for actions they take internationally. This is not a new strategy. There's a book called Propaganda Techniques in World War. I talk about it a lot. It's written by Harold Laswell. And I believe he's talking about the British. It's always the British. Well, you know, nowadays it's always the Jews, people say, but it used to always be the British. Maybe they're the same. I don't know. But the propaganda strategy was you hold information, you control when you release it to the public. Stuff that they're interested in that will consume them. And you decide when they get to know. And when they get to know is when you're doing something on the international stage that you don't want them fretting about. Oh, you don't like this? Here's a flood of information to consume all of you. And within that, the strategy talks about this in the book. This is a great book. It's a great book. It's so relevant today. It's 100 years old, but it's so relevant today. Within that strategy, bury information that you don't want anybody focusing on. It's just like in the articles. The mainstream media oftentimes does publish truth, but not past, the middle of the article. It's always in that lower third that nobody reads. And it oftentimes reveals the opposite of what the headline says, because they do these studies where people's eye, they look at the headlines, they scan, they look at a couple words here and there, and they never look at these certain areas of articles. And that's where they put information that actually tells a little bit of the truth, because it's plausible deniability for them. Oh, we told you the truth. It was in that 35-page article that you just didn't scroll down enough because you have no attention span and it wasn't delivered to you in the form of a TikTok video. We told the truth. It doesn't matter that the headline was the opposite. And in this book, they talk about if you don't want them to find out about certain things or focus on it, just overwhelm them with information when you choose to tell them. If you want to reveal something negative to them, you decide and you do it in a flood of data, because no one is going to see it, and the person who does will be called crazy. There's 80,000 pages here. 80,000 pages. This was my original summation of the documents, the JFK documents. 80,000 pages, 3,000 plus PDF documents, and no search bar. That's impossible. That's absolutely impossible. They do this every time. When Trump was on trial in New York, I can't even remember which case it was. Maybe it was the hush money. It's the one he went to, and they did the demonstrations outside of the court. But the cameras weren't in the court. It was a local district or federal district in New York. And every day I went to the transcripts, because they put the transcripts up on the court website in New York. And the transcripts they put up, and they don't usually do it this way. Usually you can get court transcripts that are very easy to search. You just Control F and you can search them. They make them easy to search. But what they did, instead of putting a document up of all the transcripts of the people testifying against Trump and what the judge said and everybody else, is they made them images. It was I'd never seen that before. I went to law school. I've read so many court documents. I'd never in my life seen this, and I expected it to happen, because I'm like, they don't want this to be searchable. And so what you had to do is you had to download every single page. And court documents are often hundreds of pages long. And you had to read it, or you had to find some converter. And you had to get all these different documents on your computer that might not have enough space. And nobody is going to do that, because people don't have time. It's tedious. It's simple sabotage. The OSS manual applied to modern reality. And that's exactly what this is. 3,000 documents. Who is going to download 3,000 documents on their computer, clump them all together, and then find a program that makes them searchable? That's the value in this. That is how you find out stuff, because people have questions, and those questions get answered by typing different search queries into a searchable document. None of this is searchable. It's a scavenger hunt. Although I do have Grok on a mission right now. my question to Grok was, because I kept asking these, I was like, maybe this is something that this AI can be helpful in doing, is reading all the stuff that we can't read. But I realized that all it's doing is giving summaries of what the New York Times, MSNBC said. And I said, hey, Grok, can you actually read what is on PDF images, or can you only give summaries of text articles? And it said, if you give me a link, I can read the images and answer any of your questions. Basically, that's my summation of that. And I said, okay. And it actually said, for example, if you give me a link of archive dot whatever, the National Archive, my follow-up question was, what if I give you one link that has 3,000 different links on it to 3,000 or so PDFs, or however many it is right now? Do I need to give you 3,000 links, or can I give you one and you can go through all those? It said I can give it one. And it told me without one, it can go through all these images and then it can answer my questions. And I said, how long will that take you? And it did a little math analysis, whatever. And it said, it'll take me about an hour and a half. And I did this about 10 minutes ago. So I'm going to see if it actually is useful to answer questions. This would be the most useful AI feature that I've ever discovered, if it actually can. Because every time I've asked AI a question about these documents, it's told me something that I know is not true. Not to go there, but is Israel mentioned? Israel's never mentioned. Like, okay, is Jimmy Carter mentioned? No, Jimmy. So it's just the most useless feature. We'll see if Grok can step up. Nevertheless, every time I intend on doing a short show, I do this really long opening every single time. Okay. I don't want to be sour on it. It is interesting. It's kind of putting a little bit of the fun back into conspiracy theories again. Conspiracy theories used to be fun. Then they became racist, white nationalist. So now we can talk about JFK again. While Trump bombs the Houthis or whatever. It sounds like a Star Trek villain. I don't know. It's that balance back and forth. I don't mean to make light of it. I know it's a serious subject, but that's what's happening. That's what it is. Like, the only thing that these documents have proven is that they're another way to divide and conquer people. Because there's not going to be no universal agreement on these documents. There's so many documents. People can find what they want that satisfies their confirmation bias. And you see it all over Twitter. So everybody can get consumed with fighting over their opinions. For example, the New York Times, within like 5 minutes of these documents being released, the New York Times had already declared that the main takeaways of these, at the time, 60,000 documents, was basically Oswald still did it, the CIA not implicated, single shooter verified, conspiracy theorists stupid. That might as well have been their headline. Like, almost immediately, that was their headline. That's their confirmation bias. And everybody's got their confirmation bias. You see it all over Twitter. And that's another challenge. It's a real challenge, man. What you will see on X a lot is whenever there's these document releases, there's been a number of them past few months, is you will see people with big accounts sharing around damning documents. Oh my gosh, we knew that this was going to be the case. And Israel, obviously, is the one I'm thinking about right now. But it's always something. There was something with the Epstein documents that people were sharing around as though they were new. I knew right away they weren't, because I literally was showing those Epstein documents 8 years ago. I got kicked off WSB for doing that. So I knew what people were showing weren't new. And they act like they're new because they can get engagement. some of the Israel stuff that people are posting is new. So there was documents released in 98, in 2015, and 2009 that did have redactions in them. And the new documents, it was the same document, but it was unredacted, and it said like Israeli intelligence. There was other documents going around that also mentioned Israel that have been out for decades. You can find them. They've been out 2015, 1998, 2009. This is not the first time Israel has been mentioned in the JFK documents. They've been mentioned in them a long time, just as Russia has, just as Cuba has, many, many different countries. But I definitely think our relationship with Israel is a little strange. But also that eagerness to satisfy the confirmation bias can be exploited by some accounts, some intentionally, most unintentionally. But there's a number of accounts that like have already been kicked off of other platforms. They come over onto X and they just do the same thing, and they just flood it with a bunch of old documents, and they say they're new, and people share it like crazy. And to decipher between what actually just got released and what some big account is flooding and is being shared over and over again can be very frustrating, because it's not easy to tell right away. And unless you're looking out for it, I always look out for it. But most people don't. It's what I do for a living. That's why. It's like an obsession. So it's weird that I look out for it. Normal people don't. And when you see something shared so often by, wow, this person's got a big Matt Wallace or something like that. I think that's one of the guy's names. I guess full of shit. Usually. Not to say that people are full of shit. Don't say things that are right sometimes. They do. But my point is, X is not the most trusted news source. Nothing is the most trusted news source. The most trusted news source is yourself. Because right now, there's such a grift that exists everywhere, even the places you like, that it's really on you to question what you want to be true. Sometimes, like in this instance, some people are really ready to jump on the Israel. Connected to Israel does seem to be connected to a lot of things, but there's a lot of conclusion jumping. And people are getting mad about that, I know. It's just our own certainty, and this is my opinion. It can be like really exciting sometimes to be like, yeah, finally, we got this shit. But like that to me is like the most vulnerable time, easiest time we can be exploited. And when for me, I'm like, I got to question the shit that I'm ready to just go full forward with. Really hardcore. Because this is when somebody's going to slip some shit in that I'm going to end up looking stupid. And I'm going to feel bad. And that's kind of an uncertainty that, honestly, in the job that I do is not good, really. Like, broadcasting and podcasting and media is the people make their fucking money. I don't mean to swear. I've been trying to do better at swearing. They make their money at just saying extreme conclusions definitively because they know that is what pulls people one way or another, that gets the clicks. It's not honest, but that's not the point. That's not the objective for many of them. I have a hard time with that. Everybody gets stuff wrong, even the people who sound the most certain about things. God, I always do this. Like, I was supposed to be done with the show right now. I was supposed to be upstairs watching the NIT, thinking about how bad Georgia Tech is. They're very, very bad. What's up, JC? What's up, Cosmic Cowboy? I didn't even see the chats there. Trump said when he was president the first time around that he didn't release them because, right, yeah, he did say that. You're right. And that's, it's to the point where it's like, I don't believe anything anybody says anymore. The real winner is the oil company, says Cosmic Cowboy. Yeah, it's, it's not something that I don't think, it's like we're children almost. You know what I mean? When you really step back and you look at the JFK file release, it's like a dad saying, let's shut the kids up. We'll just give them this toy to play with. I mean, it's insulting. I mean, did anybody expect something mind-shattering that they didn't already know or suspect? I don't think so. I don't think there's anybody going, oh, damn. I thought this was good. I thought there was going to be a picture of the second shooter and a roundtable video of the CIA talking about how they were going to patsy Oswald. Shucks. I mean, nobody, it's just an avenue to satisfy, like I said, the confirmation bias and to give us a reason, because there's so many pages. Every single person with every perspective can find something that supports their view and then use that to go fight with people on social media while the Houthis get blasted into outer space or whatever. It's an old strategy. I don't know a lot about international politics. I don't claim to. I know a lot about propaganda. And I know they don't want us focusing on international stuff. And they throw little toys at us domestically so that we don't bother them. Every single president does that. And it's like top 5 rules of how to control a nation when it comes to Edward Bernays and Laswell and all the propagandists. I don't know if Trump's read those books, but he's following the model. And I've told you guys before, I think Trump's funny. I see what he's doing, and so do you guys. It's like, oh, yeah, you go. We all have these attention spans. Oh, you know, like the Houthis? How about a little JFK files, huh? So he's going to hold back the good stuff. Hold back the really good stuff for when you really piss people off on an international action. You don't like something going on with Iran that maybe just happened? How about a little bit of Epstein files? How about we throw somebody connected to Epstein under the bus? That's when you might see someone connected as an Epstein client get thrown under the bus, if it's not through an actual prosecution, which it's not going to be through a prosecution, because if they actually have damning evidence against powerful people that were Epstein's clients, they're not going to prosecute them because those people are worth more to them out of prison than in prison because they can use their influence. They're going to blackmail them. Look, go to CIA.gov, type in quotes, do site CIA.gov, type in quotes, blackmail. You'll have fun for weeks reading about all that shit because that is all these motherfuckers do is blackmail. All right. So on to the documents I promised, how long ago now? 30 minutes ago. I'm so retarded. All right. So the first one, you've probably seen this one, I'm sure, but there's something a little bit. The thing everybody's talking about with this document is not the thing that interests me in it, but it's that document about Gary Underhill, who said that a small clique in the CIA was responsible for killing JFK. And then 6 months later, he died. They say he killed himself. Not the interesting part to me. I'll show you the interesting part to me. Let me get this up on screen. Listen, I don't think I've seen you in a while, Agresco. It's good to see you. Is that the right one? Hold on, sorry. Where is it? All right, there it is. Hopefully you guys can see this. All right. So I'm just going to read some of this because the language they use is unique. It's not random at all. They have a dictionary, these intelligence agencies do, which is why I don't accept summaries of this stuff. Because the summaries, whether AI or from New York Post or New York Times, they say the same thing. They don't pick up on the language that if you investigate further reveals, strategies and methods, I guess. So it says here at the beginning, is this the right one? Sorry. Make it a little bit smaller. All right. The day after the assassination, Gary Underhill left Washington in a hurry. Late in the evening, he showed up at a home of friends in New Jersey. He was very agitated. A small clique within the CIA was responsible for the assassination, he confided, and he was afraid for his life and probably would have to leave the country. Less than 6 months later, Underhill was found shot to death in his Washington apartment. The coroner ruled it suicide. Quote, what is the basis? This is a memorandum to Rampart's John Garrett, Underhill, Samuel, and Intermaco, whatever that means. J. Garrett Underhill had been an intel agent during World War II and was a recognized authority on limited warfare and small arms. A researcher and writer on military affairs, he was on a first-name basis with many of the top 3 brass in the Pentagon. And this is the interesting part here for me. He was also on intimate terms with a number of high-ranking CIA officials. He was one of the agency's, quote, unpeople. He was one of the agency's unpeople who performed special assignments. At one time, he had been a friend of Samuel Cummings of Intermaco, the arms broker that numbers among its customers, the CIA, and ironically, Klein Sporting Goods of Chicago. So I wonder, Klein Sporting Goods of Chicago is probably some sort of front agency, is what that would tell me, from whence the mail order allegedly was purchased. I think that's the gist of what I want. We'll do one more paragraph. The friends whom Underhill visited say he was sober but badly shook. They say he attributed the Kennedy murder to a CIA clique which was carrying on a lucrative racket in gun running, narcotics, and other contraband, and manipulating political intrigue to serve its own ends. Kennedy supposedly got wind that something was going on and was killed before he could blow the whistle on it. Although the friends had always known Underhill to be perfectly rational, that's interesting, and objective, they at first didn't take his account seriously. I think the main reason was, explains the husband, that we couldn't believe that the CIA could contain a corrupt element every bit as ruthless and more efficient as a mafia. So that's a flaw in society right there. But this was, I guess, the 60s. The CIA? No, they could never. No. Not today. So part of their dismissal was their unawareness of the CIA's actions. The verdict of suicide in Underhill's death is by no means convincing. His body was found by a writing collaborator, Asher Byron of the New York Republic. Oh, so that's the guy who found his body. He had been shot in the left ear. That's usually how people kill themselves. Somebody's like ready to kill themselves. They load the gun and they blow their left ear off. And that's why the guy went after Trump's, well, I guess he went after Trump's right ear, if I remember correctly. Can't believe the ear didn't work. And an automatic pistol was under his left side. Odd, says Brines, because Underhill was right-handed. Brines thinks the pistol was fitted with a silencer, and occupants of the apartment building could not recall hearing a shot. Underhill obviously had been dead for several days. Gary Underhill's chilling story is hardly implausible. As a spy apparatus, the CIA is honeycombed with self-contained cliques operating without any real self-control or control. So the psychology of, I can't remember the article, but this guy was describing this guy who quit the CIA, and I think tomorrow I'll probably read this whole article, was talking about the reason he quit was because the CIA was a bunch of psychopaths who had an unlimited budget and unlimited power, and they could go around the world committing murder, espionage. They could do whatever they want, and if they got caught, they knew they would never be prosecuted because they would just be brought back over. They have immunity as what was it? Not ambassador, but some sort of immunity because of the intel agency in U.S. And they come home and they're fine. And they would develop these egos that they were completely above the law. So I mean, a lot of this stuff to me is very plausible. But the most interesting thing to me is that this guy was referred to as an unperson, is what it was. Is that what they called him? An unperson? Let me make sure I get the term right, because I spent an hour researching it on the CIA.gov earlier. Agitated. Okay, unpeople. So unpeople is like, from what I can gather, it's like somebody who doesn't exist. What's up, Steve? White Lightning. Dude, I had about 20 points the other night, Steve. We got our ass kicked, but White Lightning was was lighting it up, dude, for a little while. Very, very little while. Then the blacks took over, I have to say, Steve. They dominated. All right, unperson. Let me find my information here. All right. So an unperson, CIA unpeople. These are individuals who perform special assignments for the Central Intelligence Agency. These operatives are often on intimate terms with high-ranking CIA officials and are tasked with carrying out covert operations or sensitive missions. The term suggests a level of secrecy and deniability surrounding their activities, as they may not be officially acknowledged as a CIA employee. This is deep throat type people. These are you don't exist MFer type people. The concept of unpeople highlights the complex and sometimes opaque nature of intelligence operations, where individuals may operate in a gray area between official and unofficial capacities to carry out sensitive tasks for the agency. In that context of what an unperson is for the agency, that colors this guy's death a lot more to me. I've heard people talk about this today. He died 6 months later. It could have been trauma. Could have killed himself through the shot to the ear. But they haven't mentioned the fact that he is in the most gray area of CIA agents who are not supposed to exist, who started telling his friends that a small group of CIA agents are the ones who killed JFK. To bury that, knowing the type of person, he already doesn't exist, they can get rid of him. You can get rid of somebody who basically doesn't exist on the books. So this guy's life and his interactions, if you're going to pursue a further investigation, although it would be difficult now because they're all probably dead, that would probably be a very fruitful investigation. Any unpeople, and there are lots of unpeople, CIA.gov, site:CIA.gov, unpeople, you will find many mentions of it. Now you have to differentiate because there is UN people. And that can be confusing. But this is very much kind of like a covert, online covert employee for the FBI. OCE is what they call it. This is a title that they give to a specific group of their agents. It's not just a flippant word they threw in there. This is a consistent, enduring title of somebody who doesn't exist. You watch some of these shows. There's this CIA show. I can't remember what it's called. The Firm or something. No, it's not The Firm. It's on right now. It's boring. I've watched a couple episodes, but what I remember from it, I think it's on Apple TV, maybe. Or Peacock. Peacock is this young woman becomes an agent, And they tell her, you can't have any relationships. You can't be out and about as a public figure. You don't exist. And she had to say, okay, I don't exist. People won't know who I am. And she is an unperson. People are real. I want all the unpeople files, Trump. We're going to release the files of all the unpeople. Those are the people doing the real dirty shit. Been enjoying this. What is this premium content you've been doing? Oh, you've been checking that out, Steve. I'm glad you enjoy it. It's fun. Those guys are great. Austin, man, he knows so much information. He's like an encyclopedia. It's great. And Sam's hilarious. I love doing that show. The whatever this is show that I do with Austin Picard of the Underclass podcast and Sam Tripoli of the Tinfoil Hat podcast for Patreon subscribers, patreon.com/propaganda report, and local subscribers, propreport.locals or whatever it is. Fantastic show, a lot of fun. I'm glad you are enjoying it, Steve. All right, so moving on. That's a term that I took from the document, and I began searching. You can search on FBI, CIA. Always include PDF when you search, though. I'll say it again, site:CIA.gov. Whatever the term is, PDF, and you will get declassified documents, all of them that exist on the CIA website. That is one of the things you still can do on the CIA.gov website. Google search has pretty much become useless over the past 5 or 6 years, but that is still an effective search strategy for searching within a website. So, all right. Now, on to the next document. The most interesting one is the third one I'm going to do. This one will be quick here. The second one that has been going around is that Oswald was investigated by a KGB official known as Slava to see if Oswald was himself a KGB official. So that headline that's been going around on X and on the mainstream media, the most interesting thing in this document has absolutely nothing to do with Oswald or JFK. But the overview that they're giving people in this one is that this KGB guy, like in the 70s or something like that, maybe the 80s, I can't remember, but his job was to go back and find out, look through all the KGB files of 5 folders to see if Oswald was one of their old agents. And he did that, and he determined that, one, he determined that Oswald was a bad shot. Everybody knew that. That's not new. I mean, that was part of the narrative before. 2, that he said that he didn't believe Oswald could be controlled. I mean, that's hilarious. The guy actually wrote in his report, I don't think this guy could be controlled. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. Of course, anybody with the right leverage can be controlled. You don't realize if you're being controlled. We're all controlled by our instincts and desires and habits. The fact that that's written in those documents, to me, is like a misdirect. It's retarded. And then he says, no, there's no evidence that he was KGB. Who gives a shit? It's just such an irrelevant thing. The idea that he was being investigated. There's a whole bunch of files that are like, they were onto Oswald. The CIA was following Oswald. It sounds exactly like every school shooter we hear a story about, every alleged assassin we hear a story about. The FBI is like, we've been on their radar for 3 years. Oh my God, they're always on the radar. That's, maybe they're just good at their job, but they're not good at intervening, or maybe they just identify patsies. You could argue either way. I don't know. But the most interesting thing about this document, I'll show you. Look at this shit, dude. Look at this shit. God, why does this screen do this? All right, there it is. Okay. All right, so that's the first page of it. This was just released. This has nothing to do with Oswald. So the guy writes his report. the guy who did the investigation to see if Oswald was KGB, the Russian guy. And then he moves on to write about the next thing he was investigating. And here's what he says in the next paragraph after saying that Oswald is not KGB. He says, let me tell you this guy's name. Oh, Slava. That's his name. Slava. I already told you. Slava says, in preparation for establishment of a liaison relationship with the Swedish intelligence service, Nikova personally performed an inquiry. Nikova Slava. So Nikova and Slava are the same person. Personally performed an inquiry for Baketin into the fate of Swedish diplomat Radul Wallenberg. There is still pressure from the Swedish side to have a definitive answer on this matter because of the continuing importance of the Wallenberg family. So that's another name that I haven't plugged into the CIA.gov site, but that's probably in there. Nikovov was amazed to find out that the KGB had not been able to previously establish whether Wallenberg had died and under what circumstances. He was able to find partial evidence from 14 different sources. Does it say NF? Nikolavov, I'm saying his name wrong, I know. Oh, he was able to find, I can't, hold on. I got to make it a little bigger. I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time seeing it on my screen. My screens are like kind of 5 feet away here. Okay. Nikonov, that's his name. I've been pronouncing it way off. Was amazed to find out that the KGB had not been able to previously establish whether Wallenberg had died and under what circumstances. He was able to find partial evidence from 14 different sources. It says NF in parentheses. Nikonov, now executed late in 1947. So I think the belief was that this guy had been executed during World War II, and he was looking for proof because the family wasn't certain, is what I gather. There were indications that Wallenberg was suspected of having contacts with others who were accused of providing false diplomatic identity documents to others beyond Jews saved from the Holocaust. Among those were Nazi war criminals who were allowed to escape. There was no proof of Wallenberg's guilt in any of these charges. And then they go on and talk about a Fulbright professor who was Nikonov's former professor and friend at Maryland University. I mean, this is Operation Paperclip is what it sounds like. Fulbright professor for winter 1991 term, St. Petersburg University, 2 previous Fulbright assignments in Moscow. Okay, they're just giving this guy's resume. There are no base traces on Smith. He served in the military and is very disposed towards the U.S. government. He volunteered info on Nikonov and other U.S. So I guess they're talking about where they got the information. But it sounds like this guy who is from a prominent family from Sweden, maybe he faked his death and he was an expert in making fake identification that previously they believed he was only helping Jewish people get out of the Holocaust with. But as new evidence turned up, that maybe he was helping Nazis escape Germany with. I want to know more about that. Like, that's it. That's a lot more interesting to me. Like, that story. I gotta write that guy's name down. So if any of you guys are into that research on the CIA.gov website or wherever, you can also just type these people's names into Google in parentheses and next to it in parentheses PDF. And you might find other government websites pop up with these people's names on them. But this is another name to search right here. All right. So now on to what I found to be the most interesting JFK connection that I was able to find. Where is that? All right. So it's a story. You guys have probably heard it. Probably heard part of it anyway. But I guarantee you have not heard this. Is the JFK file about how this one guy says that he tipped off the Brits and that he tried to tip off the Americans that Oswald was going to assassinate JFK before it happened. He knew about it, tried to warn people. He did warn people, and he was stonewalled. A guy named Sergei, I have no idea how to pronounce his last name. Hold on, I'm going to look that up. It's a Russian guy. Pronounce. Here we go. Zornino. Sergei Zornino. So, the story going around in the media is that there was a letter from Sergei Zornino that revealed that in July of 1963, he warned officials in London and the U.S. about Oswald's plans to kill Kennedy, and that they heard his warnings and they did nothing. That's the awe factor in this document. But it's actually not when you look a little deeper. What struck me about this document is it includes a letter, a handwritten letter from Zornino, Sergei, about all of this, and it includes a little bit of the backstory. I don't know that they can corroborate that he told anybody. He's trying to say that they can. But at no point in time in this document does it say who Sergei Zornino is. And that's my first question. Who is this person who could be in a position to get information about a potential assassination and then years later be taken seriously by both the British and the United States government when he's saying, I told you 10 years ago that this was going to happen and you guys blackballed me? Normally, somebody who does that, they wouldn't get the letters they write classified, only to be declassified decades later. So who is this person? That's relevant. And so before I read you the letters that he wrote and that he says, where he says what he told them before the assassination, I'm going to tell you the only other place that I was able to find this guy's name mentioned on the internet outside of the documents that were just released. And it was on CIA.gov. I did what I've been describing throughout the show. Site CIA.gov. Put this guy's name in parentheses, Sergei Zornino or whatever. And here's what came up. There's one document. One search result appeared. And it's this on screen right here. This document here, this is very interesting to me. This is the stuff I like about these declassified documents. Because this is a connection. This is something that should be investigated. This is a document from 1951, May 15th. And it's a list of male, it says DPs on here. That means displaced persons. It's a list of male displaced persons from the USSR and the Soviet satellites who are now eligible for induction into the armed services. You see, after World War II, the U.S. implemented this displaced persons program. And they ran it for like 4 years, and it was a refugee resettlement program that was designed to address the issue of the millions of Europeans who had been displaced by World War II. And what the program offered those who qualified was the opportunity to resettle in the United States. And some of them even had the opportunity, once they did resettle, I think it was less than 4,000 that were able to qualify and resettle. And an even smaller amount, I think it was 100, that qualified for this. Once they resettled, they then were qualified to join the U.S. military. And not just any branch that they wanted. Specific branches of the U.S. military. This is through the Lodge Act, is what this has. So the Lodge Act authorized the voluntary enlistment of 2,500 unmarried foreign national males into the U.S. Army who were from Eastern European displacement people because of the war. And what it enabled them to do was to serve in two branches of the military. One, the Army Special Forces, and the Psychological Warfare Unit. They could be special forces, they could be psychological warfare. 100 Eastern European soldiers were recruited into those units between 1951 and 1955. The special forces and the psychological warfare units. This list here on screen is a list of the Eastern Europeans who are part of that program who, after moving over to the U.S. through this refugee program, were now eligible to join one of those two services. On that list is the guy who wrote that letter, Sergei. I already forgot how to pronounce his last name. Who said that he tried to warn the Brits and the U.S. before JFK was killed that Oswald had a plan to go over there and kill him. Just happened to be part of this program. Was he part of a psychological warfare unit? I don't know. But you can see on screen here, it says, so he was 23 at the time. He was single. Based on his letter, you can tell he's single. It doesn't say that here. But so CWS is like Church World something. So that was the philanthropy church that sponsored him coming over here. And HQ, so this here is like where they were all assigned. So you see up here, they have Reed Farm. So that's part of like a Tulski CIA education center that a bunch of the Russians that they brought over here after the war lived. And there's all these stories. It's hard to find information about this, but there's like these stories of kidnappings and like crazy ass CIA stuff that goes. It's like feels like a black site when you start reading about it. And HQS next to Sergei's name, I'm not certain that means headquarters. And I don't know if it means CIA headquarters. But these are where these refugees were assigned. So Sergei, at 23, was assigned to HQS, probably headquarters or something. And this was in, where is it? This was in September 14th of 1950, this guy. Okay? And then 20 years later, we go over here, and Sergei, actually 70 years later, we find out about the letters that Sergei wrote. You see on screen here, Sergei writes these letters in very bad handwriting, has handwriting like mine, to the British Embassy in Washington, D.C. You see, he lived in Sacramento at the time. It's the same guy, Sergei. That's the guy who was listed as eligible for the PSYOP group or for the Special Forces. as part of that refugee program. That's a completely disconnected file from this. That's on the CIA.gov website. Only other reference I can find of this man anywhere on the internet. And his letter says, so he wrote this in 1978. So he writes it after the fact, which I question that, you know. But he wrote it in 78, 28 years after he was part of that program and eligible for the military, the PSYOP program. And he said, I wrote letter on February 15th, 1978 to Mr. James Callaghan, Prime Minister, enclosed, hold on, I got to make it a little bit bigger, registered in the mail. On July 18th, 1963, I was in London, England, at the airport. Immigration officer number 175 had no visa. Immigration placed me under house arrest. Mr. Smith, in police uniform, Secret Service, brought me steak dinner. That's interesting. So it can be easy to read into that, but I don't know that they'd bring a steak dinner to somebody who they weren't familiar with. I don't think a lot of immigrants are getting steak dinners brought. Bring them all steak dinners. I don't think that's happening. And police officer interrogated me. He asked me what the embassy of the USSR said. What did you hear in Vienna, Austria? Because this guy's traveling around the world. I said, I have heard that one American defector named Lee Harvey Oswald to Russia. He doesn't write English well. And he went to Russia and he returned to the United States of America. This man is preparing to assassinate President John F. Kennedy. Mr. Smith, police officer, asked me, do you know his name? I said his name starts with an O. He just said his name. His name was published one time in the newspaper in Washington, in the Washington Post. That's another thing it's another thing to look up there. Was Oswald's name published before? I think it was, actually. I think I remember that. Mr. Smith said, police officer said, easy to find. And then the letter goes on. I do searching for this file in the police Britain intelligence. So I think he's saying that he's been trying to find a file of his letter or what he told this officer at the time to prove it. Because if you can't corroborate the story, then it's kind of useless. I ask your ambassador to help me find the truth, and I ask your government to forward my record from July 18th, 1963. So he thinks the British embassy has it and that they're keeping it from him. It's always the Brits, man. To forward it to President Jimmy Carter and to Senator Daniel Envoy. It's kind of hard to see here. It's like faded out. Yeah, I don't know what that says. Somebody in the U.S. Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. I enclose his copy of the letter and also enclose your copy of the letter on February 17th, 1978 to the Russian something. Your justice will always be appreciated. My incoming mail is controlled by the FBI agents. Some of the mail did not get forwarded to me, and the FBI suppressed my information and tortured me. And then he wrote respectfully. That's a really weird way to end a letter. You know, the FBI suppressed some of my mail, and they tortured me. Okay, sincerely, Sergey. And then he has his passport included. And then it goes down a little bit further here. And this is the last one I'm going to do. Like, this is a thread that's interesting to me. Sergey's story. So, this is from February. I can't tell what that says because it's photocopied and it's like cut off halfway. But it looks like it's Sergey's Sacramento, California copy to the British ambassador. And then they copy it to the Russian ambassador of the USSR. It says this is a retyped from handwritten. Dear sir, Mr. Waslaviv, consul, gave me order to transmit this information to the U.S. government on August 9th, 1963 in Sofia, Bulgaria. So I think this is Sergei's perspective. I think he's the one. I think somebody typed out something else that he wrote. Mr. Waslev, Counsel of Embassy of USSR, gave me this information about Mr. Lee Harvey Oswald on August 14th, 1963. Mr. Lee Harvey Oswald is assassin. He will kill President Kennedy. On August 15th, 1963, in Sofia, Bulgaria, at the airport in an embassy car, I told Mr. Blackshire, an American vice consul, that Mr. Lee Harvey Oswald is an assassin. He has a weapon, or he's ordered one. Mr. Blackfire said, it seems like he will kill someone. I said that Mr. Lee Harvey Oswald is preparing to kill the President of the United States, John F. Kennedy. Mr. Blackshire said, will it happen? I said, the right wing, will invite the president. They will criticize him in the newspaper. Then they will kill him. Mr. Blackshire told me that he will give the telegram to the Department of the State, and he gave me the address where to report. So this is his evidence. He's saying, I told this Blackshire guy who's probably dead now, and he must not have reported it. Must be the claim. At 9 a.m. on August 19th, 1963 in Washington, D.C., I went to see Mr. Kippingen, the director of the Special Counsel for the Service Department of the State at 1901 Pennsylvania Avenue. So he's got a lot of specific examples of him trying to warn people. That doesn't mean it's true. I told the director that I have information about President Kennedy. The director said, do not mention the name of President Kennedy. Only respond to questions. The director said, tell us what will happen to Mr. Lee Harvey Oswald then. I said, Mr. Lee Harvey Oswald will be killed after killing Kennedy. Well, yeah. I said, I will take the truth drug to tell the truth. The truth drug, he said he'd take. That's interesting. Director, tell us who else get killed in this country. His English is so bad. That's not me unable to read. I'm reading what he said. I said, as I heard that Dr. Martin Luther King, will also be killed. So now it's starting to seem a little suspicious to me, because now it's like he's predicting past events. It's a little too on the nose. Who will kill Dr. King, a Negro leader? I said a man who was in prison at the time. Mr. James Earl Ray was in prison at the time. Director asked where assassination will happen. That last part of the letter to me, that shatters his credibility. Yeah, that to me is, you're predicting stuff too right on. You're saying I predicted these things right on the money that happened a long time ago. I said in Dallas, Texas, is where he said that. So he's like Nostradamus at this point. Director said if someone gave this information here, I would expel the man. Director did call on FBI agents after FBI used anesthesia gas to freeze me, to drug me, to keep amnesia. So they drugged him to shut him up, he says. I told the director of the Department of State that Mr. Lee Harvey Oswald has a weapon. Go see him. It's a little weird. So I wonder what the guy's motivation would be in making these claims. Yeah, I'd really like to know more about this guy. You got a guy who was probably in Special Forces because of that program, or in the Psychological Operations Unit, who years later is making these claims that to me seem bogus. Like, I think he's probably making this stuff up. At first, I thought maybe there's a little bit to it, but he lost me at the end. Why is he doing that? What's his purpose here? I don't know. Yeah, so then he goes on. This is another letter that he wrote from 1977. He talked to the deputy district attorney, and he said, in the office of the FBI agents, Secret Service. They used the police department to harass him. And he said they gave him a pencil of anesthesia gas. They put anesthesia gas in the building he lives in. Is he crazy? They gave him drugs. They put drugs, poison in his mouth. They tortured him, he says. They took his sleep away so that he had sleep depravity. They bled him by the rectal. And then they used many other chemicals to brainwash him. I don't know that I'd be claiming to have told very important information before something happened and then saying that you're brainwashed. So they used chemicals to brainwash him in political assassination, which he says they wanted him to assassinate somebody, but he refused. So this is like wild. A man came to him from the police in 1976 in the U.S. Department of Justice. Froze him by gas. They took his gun and pistol. And they told him, they gave him a gun and pistol, and they told him he's going to go shoot somebody. He's going to go kill Sergeant Shriver. He refused. And the police intelligence told him that the assassination will not happen there. Who is this guy? There's a phone number there. I wonder if it's still in service. They don't have a area code. He says he bleeds today. He still bleeds. He's very weak. He's bleeding when he wrote this. I imagine him just humped over a typewriter, bleeding from his liver. In this letter, I ask you to give a restraining order. They tried to kill me. They brainwashed me. They poisoned my rectal. They poisoned my ass. They tried to turn me into assassin. Can I get a restraining order? Please. He ends by saying, the right wing in America tried to use me in an assassination. I refused. I am human, and I like to be treated as human. Please put a frame on me. They take advantage of me. They lie. They use mental case to take advantage of me. It's like Kanye wrote part of this. Although Kanye, it's very opposite of Kanye, but still a little bit of Kanye. To prove what I'm saying, I enclose a copy of my midnight. What does that mean? This guy's crazy. Yeah, what do you guys think about that? What? All right, so that was kind of a crazy letter. I think the question is, what search terms would you pull from that and plug into the CIA.gov website? Because that's where you're going to find interesting stuff. This guy sounds like maybe he was MK Ultra. And if they're going to do some experiments on people, which they did a lot back then, probably still do. I mean, they do today. They just do it out in the open, like COVID lockdowns and stuff. They're going to do them on the refugees they bring over after World War II. So this guy would be a prime subject to have some experimentation going on with him. There's a story behind this guy that's probably, it's been covered up probably. I mean, that's like a lot more interesting to me than same shit about JFK. Where's his brain? Can we get JFK's brain? Isn't that missing? Of course, then the police say, a paralegal says, oh, we got your concerns. You said you got ass poisoned. We got your concerns. Okay. All right. So, yeah, I said I was going to do this, so I'm going to do this just to get out of here. You guys see what was it called? White Lotus scene? I saw all these people talking about White Lotus and how Sam Rockwell just killed it. Give him the Emmy or give him the Oscar. He had a cameo in this show. Best scene anybody's ever seen in their life. So Sam Rockwell's a good actor. I thought I should watch it. And obviously, it's a scene where Sam Rockwell's character tells his buddy that he likes to dress up as an Asian girl and pay guys who look like him to gangbang him. I mean, that's the type of Oscar-worthy content I should have expected. That's what the scene's about. That's what all the hubbub is about. I find it weird. And there was an article out today that said Sam Rockwell was like unsure about doing this scene at first. Of course he was unsure about doing a scene about pretending to be an Asian girl, a ladyboy, so you could get gangbanged by people who look like you when you're not dressed as a ladyboy. Anybody would be a little unsure about a scene like that. Here's the scene, if you haven't seen it. That's the warning if you don't want to watch or listen to it. I don't find this to be a good scene at all. You can even see the girl who shared it here, Princess. I have watched every single episode, every single season of this show, White Lotus. But this scene between characters Frank, Sam Rockwell, and Rick, Walter Goggins, has to be the absolute very best scene in the entire all caps series. It's just so strange. Like, watch this.
Because I moved here because, I had to leave the States, but I picked Thailand because I always had a thing for Asian girls, And when I got here, I was like a kid in a candy store. If you got money, no attachments, nothing to do, I started partying. Yeah. It got wild. Mm-hmm. I was picking up girls every night. Always different ones. Petite ones, chubby ones, older ones, sometimes multiple ladies a night. I was out of control. I became insatiable. Yeah. And, after about 1,000 nights like that, you start to lose it. I started to wonder, where am I going with this? Why do I feel this need to fuck all these women? What is desire? The form of this cute Asian girl, why does it have such a grip on me? Because she's the opposite of me? Is she gonna complete me in some way? I realized I could fuck a million women, I'd still never be satisfied. Maybe what I really want is to be one of these Asian girls.
Really? Not really.
No, really.
Really?
So, one night I took home some girl, turned out to be a lady boy, which I'd done before, but this time, instead of fucking the lady boy fucked me. And it was kind of magical. And I got in my head what I really wanted was to be one of these Asian girls, getting fucked by me, and to feel that. So I put out an ad looking for a white guy, my age, come over and fuck me. Found a guy looked a lot like me. And then I put on some lingerie and perfume, made myself look like one of these girls. And I thought I looked pretty hot. And then this guy came over and railed the shit out of me. And then I got addicted to that. Some nights 3, 4 guys would come over and rail the shit out of me.
What?
Some I even had to pay. And at the same time, I'd hire an Asian girl to just sit there and watch the whole thing. I'd look in her eyes, Well, some guy was fucking me, and I think I am her, and I'm fucking me. Hey, we all have our Achilles heel, man, you know. Where does it come from? Why are some of us attracted to the opposite form?
Yeah.
And some of us the same. Sex is a poetic act. It's a metaphor. Metaphor for what? Are we our forms? Am I a middle-aged white guy on the inside, too? Or inside? Could I be an Asian girl?
Oh.
Right.
Oh.
I don't know.
Guess I was trying to fuck my way to the answer. And then I realized I gotta stop the drugs, the girls, trying to be a girl. I got into Buddhism, which is all about, spirit versus form, detaching from self, getting off the never-ending carousel of lust and suffering. Being sober isn't so hard. Being celibate, though, it's...
I don't know if it ends with something amazing, but it ends right there at 4:20. That's the amazing scene everybody's talking about. Sam Rockwell's fantasy that his character lived out, not his character, of being a ladyboy getting banged by himself, multiple of himself, while watching an Asian girl. He is the Asian girl. There's a twisted humor in that. But the level of praise that scene is getting seems a little bit artificial to me. It creeped me out. I've never seen that show. Maybe that's how that show is. I've seen articles about it. I think that might be the one that Arnold Schwarzenegger's son is on. He has all these weird gay scenes. You don't have to do gay scenes as an actor if you're not gay. In fact, with the way they arrange things, I would think they wouldn't even ask straight people to do gay scenes or play gay characters. In the past, that was normal. Gay people could play straight people could play. It's normal. But that becomes some sort of appropriation through the woke years. It's just like a celebration of this straight man doing the gayest. Didn't show the gay stuff, but the description is disturbing. It's very disturbing. And then this article here, look at this. Is that the right? No, it's Grok. It's Grok still trying to give me all the. I told Grok to let me know when it's got all the answers about those files. It has not done that yet. I don't have that scene up. But the article was a picture of Rockwell with his wife and him looking a little apprehensive and his wife with a big smile. Sam Rockwell was unsure about this cameo appearance at first. Almost like his wife encouraged him to do it. And thank goodness he did it, because we wouldn't have got that scene of a lifetime. You know, they have those things where it's like so-and-so almost played this iconic role, and here's why they didn't. Sam Rockwell almost didn't take this very, very strange homosexual dark role. But thank goodness his wife was there to push him into it. Was kind of the color of the article. Very strange. Very, very strange. Very, very strange. All right. One more thing, then we're done getting out of here. And then I'm going to wait for Gronk to give me the answers that we're all looking for. It's the NCAA basketball season. And as you know, everybody's filling out their women's college basketball bracket. That's what everybody's doing nowadays. At least that's what CNN wants everybody to do. CNN brought on earlier some college basketball women's expert onto what's his show called? What is his show called? The Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer. And Wolf Blitzer's so uncomfortable. They said, we have to push the women's college basketball just like we're pushing the WNBA. And they're switching over. They're even talking on CNN about getting more political opinions onto sports podcasts and ESPN, as if ESPN hasn't just been destroyed because of that very thing. And Wolf Blitzer has to sit here and pretend that he is so fired up about the women's college basketball NCAA tournament. I find his uncomfortableness hilarious. And at the end of the clip, pay attention because he makes no sense. And everybody's trying to act like this is a normal. It's just so great. They actually appreciate CNN doing this. Here they are.
Women's basketball tournament tips off with 68 schools vying for the championship.
Look at his face. Look at Wolf Blitzer's face. He's a deer in headlights. He has no. They cut from Trump saying he just finished a call with Zelensky to something very important: women's college basketball. And Wolf Blitzer is like, oh my God, I wish I was a ladyboy getting screwed by myself.
Other news, important news. The march to the Final Four in Tampa begins today.
The bottom third just switched from Trump and Zelensky to gearing up for the women's basketball tournament.
The NCAA women's basketball tournament tips off with 68 schools vying for the championship. For the latest, we are joined by CNN sports analyst and sports columnist for USA Today, Christine Brennan.
So this woman, for those listening, looks exactly like you're imagining she does.
All right, Christine, I've been waiting for days to share my bracket with you. My Final Four.
So look, see Wolf Blitzer here. She's enthusiastic in the peak, waiting for days. Wolf Blitzer is he's like 77 years old. He's looking down at his notes. The dude has never watched women's basketball in his life. Watch him. He looks down again.
For days.
Look at him. He's like, what the hell is going on?
With you.
He's reading who his Final Four picks are because he doesn't know, but that's what they're about to make him do.
My Final Four is UCLA, USC,
God, I'm sorry to bring this back. It's so great because it's so obvious that he just saw that he has to give his Final Four picks, and he has no clue. Why would Wolf Blitzer have women's Final Four picks? Who wrote this segment for them?
For the latest, we are joined by CNN sports analyst and sports columnist for USA Today, Christine Brennan.
God.
All right, Christine, I've been waiting for days
There he is.
to share my bracket with you. My Final Four is UCLA, USC, South Carolina, and TCU, with South Carolina winning the whole thing.
South Carolina. I mean, she read hers off of the prompter. Look at her. She's reading the prompter. None of it's real.
Bracket with you. My Final Four is UCLA, USC, South Carolina, and TCU.
So anybody who watches basketball, and there's some people here who do, you don't have to look at a teleprompter to remember who your Final Four picks are. You know who they are. You know your whole damn bracket. You don't have to look at notes to know who your Final Four picks are.
With South Carolina winning the whole thing. And I also have to thank my colleague Brian Tetzler for helping me.
Well, that's great.
Just forcing women's basketball down our throat at the college level now.
Picking South Carolina, Pamela, to win the whole thing is a very, very, very smart move. They won 2 of the last 3, and Dawn Staley.
This girl looks like she could bite a bottle cap off of a bottle of Corona. She's a bottle opener. You don't need one. She has, get me somebody with the most stereotypical dykish haircut you can and bring her in, sit her next to Wolf Blitzer, and let's make Wolf Blitzer pick his women's Final Four. I'm liking the new CNN.
At this time of year is just money in the bank. So I think South Carolina is a great choice. Comes from obviously a strong conference, the Southeastern Conference, that we talked about the men the other day. Same thing, just an absolute, the gold standard in March, and of course in early April, Dawn Staley and South Carolina.
I'm anxious to get your thoughts about my Final Four for the women's.
Okay.
So I just want to stop it. Do you think he's anxious to get her thoughts about his He's sitting there. He's like, my God, I have this 6'8" lesbian who I've never seen in my life, who knows so much about the sport I love. I'm so anxious to see what she thinks about my picks that I just read off of a paper that somebody gave me. This is the best theater because they're not good at this type of theater. Look at it. It's so, oh God, I love this. I wish I could have been there before the show started at the directing, because he's dreading this. The dude's never watched a women's game in his life. Nobody has.
And of course, in early April, Dawn Staley and South Carolina.
I'm anxious to get your thoughts about my Final Four for the women's
Okay.
bracket. I have UCLA, University of Connecticut, Michigan, and Duke, with Michigan winning all of it. What do you think of my bracket?
I'm a Big Ten person, as you know, Northwestern, and so
Wolf Blitzer is the chick who'd never watched basketball, who just picks her favorite colors. He didn't even do that. Somebody told him. Why is this? Why do you guys think this is so important for CNN? This is a coordinated, it's part of a larger coordinated campaign of trying to make women's basketball more relevant. Caitlin Clark, great marketing for the brand. She's a good basketball player. People watch her. But they don't, they don't really pump her up like they should. But is CNN, they think there's some avenue for propaganda? They're going to win some of the college basketball. Who's watching CNN? Who's like, I'm going to tune in to the Situation Room to get my news on Ukraine and Wolf Blitzer's women's Final Four picks? Who's like, exactly what I was asking for with this segment? Literally zero people. Everybody watching this is confused. What's happening is what everybody's saying.
Michigan doing and the Big Ten doing that, I love that. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, it would be great from the Big Ten perspective.
Sorry, Wolf. Your picks are stupid.
That would require a lot of upsets. But I like that you've done that. And, of course, with
I like that. So I don't even know what these teams are that he picked. These might not even be teams that even have a chance. I want to see what their seeds are. Women's college. Because he's kind of talking to him like he's stupid, actually. It's like he picked Duke. Like, maybe they let him choose one. I don't know. And he recognizes Duke from, geez Louise. Oh, my God. No. All right. So the women's bracket, let me get a look here. Where's Michigan? Why can't I see this? All right. Michigan's a 6th seed. So he's got a 6th seed winning the whole thing. So Duke's a 2 seed. That's not bad. UCLA's a 1 seed. So, okay, his picks aren't that bad. I mean, he doesn't know he picked them.
that shows, Wolf, is that the women's game has advanced so much more than where it was in the old days when it was always UConn and Tennessee, and you could always like one of the criticisms of the women's game was, well, everyone knows who's going to win. Well, no one knows who's going to win anymore now, which, of course, shows how Title IX has worked its way up and, of course, the incredible parity now and all the great women athletes.
Wait a minute. I didn't even recognize this the first time through. This was the point of all of this? We need to address the problem of women's basketball. The reason people don't watch is because everybody knows UConn is going to win. But now there's so much parity. And so they had Wolf Blitzer sit in and pick Michigan. Let's get Wolf to pick Michigan, a 6 seed. And we can then slip the Title IX. Look at all the parity. We solved the problem of women's college basketball. Has nothing to do with being supremely boring 38 to 37 games or 120 to 15 games. What is Title IX? What is that? Is she Title IX?
Parity now and all the great women
Women
athletes.
players are amazing.
They are.
And it's so much fun to watch.
The women players are amazing and they're so much fun to watch, he says. Oh my God. I wish someone would ask him who his favorite player is and what he loves about her so much. They're so much fun to watch.
Now and all the great women
Women
athletes.
players are amazing.
They knows who's going to win. Well, no one knows who's going to win anymore now, which of course shows how Title IX has worked.
Title IX. What is Title IX? Women's college basketball. Title IX. The greatest driver of improvement, parity. It's literally the language that she used right out of this article. And popularity in college basketball is Title IX. Wow. It's a 1972 landmark registration which required equity in education. This is crazy. While the bill's authors were thinking primarily of the classroom, the law's most profound effects may be in school sports. This is legislation that's 53 years old. We're finally seeing the effects of Title IX because Wolf Blitzer picked Michigan to win it all instead of UConn. God, a retard wrote this segment. Prior to Title IX, schools invested few resources in women's sports. Most schools didn't embrace Title IX with enthusiasm. Nonetheless, as girls and women used the law to force change, opportunities for participation opened up, and girls and women stepped in to compete. Women's sport. Title IX required equitable investment in women's sports, and resources became available. Coaching and players improved. Schools had invested in better facilities. So equity and, I guess, money that the programs receive. Maybe that's what it is. What a weird segment. What a really strange thing this is. I guess this is early morning because I heard this yesterday morning at like 11:30. I guess that's what they play at 11:30.
Its way up, and of course the incredible parity now and all the great women athletes.
Players are amazing.
They are.
And it's so much fun to watch.
So you're picking an upset, which is fun. I like that.
Right, that's what I like to do.
So then on that
That's
note,
what he likes to do. That's what Wolf is like. Wolf, what are you into this year? Women's basketball, man. Like, there's so much fun to watch. NCAA, I don't watch the men. There's so much fun to watch. It's what I like to do. I'm picking upsets, baby. I'm 6 seed. 6 seed. God, I bet he is so embarrassed after this. I would like to see proof of Wolf Blitzer in a Michigan jersey watching every minute of every game that the female Wolverines play in this NCAA tournament. I'll donate some money, it'd be like privatized Title IX, to Michigan University to satisfy that equity. If we can get Wolf Blitzer, it has to be a female Michigan Wolverine jersey. I'd like to see him be the Spike Lee, courtside, cheering for the Michigan Wolverines. Put him in the shorts, too. I want to see those pasty legs. The man's never been more uncomfortable. Dude, I want to get Wolf Blitzer's address. I don't want anybody to dox him, but I would like to send him all of the Lady Wolverine gear. If anybody knows Wolf Blitzer, I'll donate to this. Let's send all the Lady Wolverine gear to Wolf Blitzer. Spread equity, Title IX. Let's make it fair. This is a mission of mine. I would love to see this. I want to see him on CNN in Michigan. I want to see him really pissed off when Michigan loses in the second round. I want to see him unable to deliver news about Trump and Ukraine. I can't do it today. My Lady Wolverines got, muff buffed, lost by 25, and he just can't work. He just loves women's basketball. This is how you know they're full of shit right here. When they're telling these lies that they're not good at telling. The other lies they're good at telling. But this is the most shameless bullshit you've ever heard in your life, these last few sentences. And I couldn't even say what he's saying with a straight face. Nobody believes him.
The players are amazing.
The players are amazing.
One of the criticisms of the women's game was, well, everyone knows who's going to win. Well, no one knows who's going to win anymore now, which of course shows how Title IX has worked its way up, and of course the incredible parity now and all the great women athletes.
Players are amazing.
They are.
And it's so much fun to watch.
So you're picking an upset, which is fun. I like that.
Right, that's what I like to do.
So then on that note, what players are you most excited about?
I am.
That's what he does. I'm Wolf Blitzer. I pick upsets, baby. I pick upsets.
Really intrigued by UCLA and USC. Of course, they used to be in the Pac-12, and now they're in the Big Ten. And I think that
Wolf knows
when
that.
you look at these two
You ain't
great
got to tell Wolf that. Wolf knows all these facts.
schools, UCLA is the overall #1 seed. USC, of course, has Juju Watkins, and
Juju. I don't think that's a coincidence.
she is seen as kind of the heir apparent to Caitlin Clark, right? But USC lost to UCLA in the Big Ten championship.
Wait, you're telling me that black girl's heir apparent to Caitlin Clark? I don't want to appropriate. Wolf Blitzer might have something to say.
So I also think it's going to be fascinating because USC absolutely is in a bracket in its region that includes UConn. So Connecticut and USC may well have to face each other, very likely, in the Elite Eight. They won't even get to the Final Four. I think that's a big mistake, a big swing and a miss by the NCAA to put Paige Beckers and UConn and Juju Watkins and South Carolina in the same region, which means you're going to knock one of those two teams out before they reach the final.
All right, so I pause it there because I want you to watch Wolf Blitzer's reaction to this. He has no idea what she's talking about. These two good teams, the committee messed up. They put these two Titans in the same region, the same bracket. Only one of them can get to the Final Four. They should have both been 1 seed. That's basically what she's saying. I'm going to take it back, let you hear that again. Listen to what Wolf says.
And UConn and Juju Watkins and South Carolina in the same region, which means you're going to knock one of those two teams out before they reach the Final Four.
And if they would have reached the Final Four, it would have been huge. All right, thanks very much, Christine Brennan.
Well, she has no idea what he's talking about. No, it's not a basketball show. Truth violates guidelines. I'm showing Wolf Blitzer lying about a subject that he's not used to lying about. He's used to lying about news media and Ukraine, but they forced him to pretend to be a fanatic of the female Michigan Wolverines in this segment on the Situation Room. And she said these two Titans are and he said it would have been. She has no idea what he's talking. She's laughing at him at this point. It's kind of elder abuse to do what they did to Wolf Blitzer today. Send them all your Michigan Wolverine gear. What a strange segment. I would like to see the strategy session, like the target market thing. I know it's the equity angle. They always play that. There's been a lot of talk about pay women basketball players the same. Okay, I guess if you have it, if you got it. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Yeah. Wolf Blitzer's pulling for the Wolverines, the female Wolverines. Do you guys think that's just like, is that strictly an equity, like a backdoor? Because they can't, Trump will be like, executive order if people talk about DI or equity type stuff. Is this like a weird way of continuing to talk? This is not going to increase the ratings for the women's NCAA tournament. Like I said, there's nobody going, I wasn't going to watch the women's tournament. I was going to focus on protesting Elon Musk and his chainsaw at the Marietta Square with Indivisible. But now that I know that Wolf Blitzer is a lady Wolverine, my butt's staying at home, and we're going to the Final Four, baby. Because he picks upsets, like you said. I'm sorry. And that kind of thing, I could talk annoyingly about that segment for a very long time, as you guys know. So I won't continue to do that. But it's just really funny to me that they forced him to do that. And that's not on their website or their YouTube page. I heard that yesterday morning, and you can find the videos they don't put up on their YouTube page on archive.org. If you remember some of the search words and you get a video download app. Because some of these things I don't think they want being remembered. Nevertheless, all right, I'm getting out of here. So once again, I intended to do like a 40-minute show, and it became an hour and 40 minutes. But that's just the way the lady basketball bounces sometimes. All right, guys. I will talk to you guys later this week. And I'm serious. So if you want to leave in the comments what terms that you think from what you've read in those JFK files would be good terms to search CIA.gov, FBI.gov, NSA, all the government websites. The most interesting terms and lingo that piques your interest because it's strategic, it's not random, and you will probably find something that will lead to more interesting things like we talked about tonight. I would love to hear some of the stuff that y'all find because we're never going to get through all those JFK documents ever. I'll let you know what Grok says. Probably nothing. Propagandafight.com. We will talk to you guys. We will talk to you guys next time. Y'all have a fantastic rest of your evening.